talk about an issue that I have very strong views about. Um, just turn the glasses off because I think I'm looking in the screen right now. I was using them for something else. Um, in previous occasions, I've made videos about this and I've had to maybe edit them because I was overcome by emotions and I let my emotions come through more than just trying to make a clear video. The issue I'm talking about is workfare. If you don't know what this is, and I suspect there's slight differences from country to country, but basically the logic is the same. I'm only talking here about the United Kingdom because I'm not familiar with what the situation is in other countries. But basically, workfare, or welfare to work is another way it's described, is a program the government uses to basically make long-term unemployed people come off the statistics of being officially unemployed. So it's, in my view, sort of false cover for lowering unemployment rates. But more concerning to me is just how plain wrong it is. I will say I've been through it personally, so this is something that's why I've got strong views on it. I've been through it personally and I know how soul destroying it is. I'm just going to read a few things from Wikipedia, which, granted, isn't the best source, but it's most available. Um, and basically, workfare comes under a variety of different names. There's various agencies and schemes that are sort of come under the umbrella of workfare. Two that I can name is A4E, and I believe the CEO woman of that was discredited at one point and had to step down when it was revealed it was a profit-making scheme. And the one I went through is Sensia. I'm not sure if that's nationwide or just in this region, but there's a variety of schemes. And anyway, this is what support. This is under the support section, and I'm going to deal with each point at a time. Criticism I'll get to in a minute, but support. Supporters of workfare argue that it is not unfair that individuals have to work in order to receive help from the state in the form of benefits, as taxpayers are working in order to pay the taxes which form part of the recipient's benefit payments. Okay, on the surface, this sounds like a fair point. If you're getting money from the state, you should sort of do something to earn it. That on the surface sounds like a fair point. What those supporters don't say, and I'm talking about the likes of Chris Grayling and Ian Duncan Smith and celebrities who support, what they don't say or what they don't acknowledge or what they lie to the public about is the fact that on workfare you're not paid. This is the difference. Someone who is in a paid job and who is paying tax, they're paying tax because they're making enough money in order to do so. They're in a paid job. If you're unemployed and you're on workfare, you're not being paid. So all the time we hear from the Murdoch press and Tory supporting newspapers of the issue about I've lost my trail of thought now, but the issue about damn it, that's irritating. I've just it's very irritating. I've just had the term in my mind, and it's just but basically the idea that so yeah, something for nothing culture. That is how the tabloid press portrays the situation. That the unemployed, the lazy benefit scroungers, and they get something for nothing. That is the very distorted viewpoint and propaganda that they send out. Actually, the reality is workfare is the real something for nothing. The unemployed are forced to do something, i.e., work, and they get nothing in return. Well, okay, technically not nothing. They continue to get job seekers allowance, but just to be clear about this, this is how is set up. You're asked to do a full day's work. It could be in a factory, it could be and you have some say in it, but minimal. Everything about workfare is minimal influence from the claimant, and the very little rights. So anyway, you're sent to this factory. In my case, it was a furniture factory, and you're expected to work. You're given a little bit of training, and I'll come to that point in a minute, but you're expected to work. So you're providing a service, you're doing the work, but the difference is the people who you're working with, who are the regular employees, they get paid for it. You don't. So, in my opinion, that is servitude and that is exploitation. Now, this is where it gets really questionable. Um, the companies that take on this scheme get a cash incentive from the government in order to do so. So it is exploitation. They're making profit off unemployed people's backs, basically. That's not an exaggeration, it's a fact. And there has been energetic campaigns to boycott companies that have used workfare. Unfortunately, so many have done it, it would be almost practically impossible to boycott every single place that has done it. But because of the pressure that has been put on them, there have been a number of high-profile outlets have now dropped their connections with this scheme because it's given them bad publicity. I'll talk about some more of the support. So that's just the first thing. On the surface, that sounds fair. Okay, make them do work because they're getting money for it. But when you look at it, it's for someone my age, for example, I think it's £75 a week you would get in job seekers allowance. Now, if you work that out, if you're doing a full day's work, £75 a week amounts to far. I can't do this on top of my head, but believe me, it goes way, way, way below the national minimum wage. So it is exploitation. There's no getting away from that fact, and supporters cannot hide that fact. It's exploitation. The workfare participants benefit from workfare as they get references and experience of the working world. Well, I have to say, as someone who's been through it, I find that incredibly patronizing. It's sort of like, this is for your own good. It's just incredibly patronizing. And it's like, we're going to talk down to you, we're going to treat you like a criminal, we're going to make you feel like shit. And hey, it's for your own good. Now, granted, you may learn one or two things about whatever trade it is you're doing, but there's a few problems with that argument. Firstly, there's no guarantee of a job at the end, so it's not like you go through workfare, then after you've been through that training probation period, you just automatically get the job. It doesn't work like that. So the experience that they're talking about is invalid if you end up unemployed in the end anyway. Um, I think that it's at best, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible. At best, you may learn a few tricks of the trade. And but people should not confuse this with the voluntary sector. I believe very much that the voluntary sector can offer that, and I do believe that the voluntary sector should be encouraged. But the key is in the word voluntary, and that's the difference with voluntary work and workfare. Workfare is forcing people to work. Now, to me, and this is not forcing people to work because it's fair and everyone works. No, this is forcing people to work for no money. I wouldn't be making such a big thing of this if they were actually paid. But the point is, this is unpaid forced labour. And by the way, the money they're getting from job seekers allowance, they have to use that as well for the transport costs from going to and from the place of work. Um, so no one can claim that that equates to salary. It doesn't. If you think it does, then you need to get into the real world. And I would say, by the way, to supporters of this, would you do it? Would you do a job from being forced to do so? Anyway, next point, that there is no compulsion to workfare as individuals are able to sign off and stop claiming benefits if they wish. Well, it's a bit of a phony argument. Technically, it is true. Technically, you can sign off, but it's basically forcing people to choose between poverty and exploitation. It's a terrible choice. Either be exploited through workfare, you don't get paid anyway, but you will get your job seekers allowance, or sign off, which means you lose the job seekers allowance and you're essentially in poverty. Because if you don't have a job, you don't have an income coming in, you're not getting any support from the state. They've punished you for for voluntarily signing off. I actually done that. I voluntarily signed off, not because I got a job, but because I no longer wanted to be treated like that. It sickened me, to be quite frank, that I, as a law-abiding citizen, was being treated like a criminal. Um, there's a wide range of issues here on criticism, and basically my views mirror those, so I'm not going to read them out from Wikipedia. The bottom line is this. Workfare is used as a way to try and pander to tabloid views that the unemployed have it easy. If you have ever been in the position of unemployment, you'll know the sort of anxiety it brings about. And anyone who says it's easy doesn't have a clue what they're talking about. If you believe what the Sun says or the Daily Mail, you will believe that the unemployed are just lazy people who take lots of money from the state and do nothing. That's not true. If you're on job seekers allowance, there are strict regulations, there are strict obligations that you have to abide by, and if you don't abide by them, then you lose that support. Um, I do appreciate the fact that we live in a country where there is that safety net in place, but the Tories, if they had their way, that wouldn't exist. And if they had their way, I honestly believe they would reintroduce workhouses. This isn't just playing party politics. I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, believe that. And incidentally, it isn't playing party politics because I feel Labour has been equally guilty in this regard. In fact, when I went through workfare, it was under the Brown government. So both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party have been guilty about this. It's just that the Tories have been a lot more vocal in it, and Labour sort of had it and they didn't talk about it. The Tories are proud of it. They're proud of exploiting people. The Lib Dems, again, I'm very disappointed they've said nothing against it, which I can only assume they support it. Um, I feel this is an area smaller parties will get support if the big parties don't do something about it, and I think that would be unfortunate because I don't actually believe in many of the things that, for example, the Greens would stand for. But if they speak out against this, I'll give them credit for that because this is an abomination. It's an abomination. It's not needed. It does not help the unemployed into work because the dropout rate, by the way, is very high. So what you have is a situation where it's sort of materialistically it looks like these people are being put into work. But the truth is, a lot of people voluntarily sign off because they cannot stomach being treated in that way. Now, just in case anyone misunderstands my position, I am in no way saying that people who are unemployed should get money from the state and not have responsibilities. I've never, ever, ever claimed that. I administer a group on Facebook called Unfair Generalizing of the Unemployed International. The premise that I had for setting up that group was precisely issues like this. I don't believe it is radical. I don't believe it's far left, and I don't believe it's a crazy idea to say that forcing people in Britain in the 21st century to work for nothing is just plain wrong. It doesn't matter what the justification is. It doesn't matter if these people have been out of work for a long time. It's wrong, and you're sure as hell not going to encourage people to get self confidence. I mean, this is there's a lot of issues that aren't spoken about. If people have been unemployed for a long time, it actually does have an impact on self confidence. And people might scoff at that, but it's a real issue. And you don't help them by talking down to them, by treating them like criminals. And none of the main three parties has said anything against this. Now, the language Mr. Miliband uses is more compassionate overall, but I'm yet to see Labour commit to abolishing this. They've spoken a lot about zero hours contracts, and granted, that's an important issue, but this is an even more immoral thing, in my opinion. It may affect fewer people, but as far as I'm concerned, this has no place on these shores, or anywhere for that matter. But this is undemocratic, it's unfair, and it is literally making a difficult situation a lot worse. Because it's basically saying if you're unemployed in Cameron's Britain, you're basically unemployment in Cameron's Britain, you may as well be a criminal. Because the Tories see unemployed people as no different from if you're a shoplifter or other sort of petty criminal. Um, so it doesn't matter if you've been made redundant or you've fallen on hard times and you're trying your level best. In the mind of the Tories, now I wrote to Theresa May about this. The reply she sent was very defensive and sort of like, "Oh, we're very sorry if you've been led to believe that," but it's a bit phony. I think she tried to blame the media. But in 2010, and I remember this clearly, and it really angered me at the time, they had billboards all over the country talking about shirkers versus strivers and this sort of thing, trying to stir up those in work against the unemployed. And I think that is the worst sort of politics, trying to create that sort of division in society. It sickens me. And the Tories, they may not, when you see debates and so on, they won't necessarily say those words, but collectively, this is what they're doing. They are stirring up demonization of the unemployed. They are spreading distortion. And then the rags that support them, the likes of the Sun and the Daily Mail, will hold up cases of welfare abuse and say this is the norm because some idiot or some selfish person somewhere has done something stupid. Like there was a guy in my city recently. He had 20 children by 15 different women or something ridiculous like that, and he was claiming a lot in benefits. Complete disgrace. Okay, I agree, complete disgrace. But what really angers me about the tabloid press is they hold up extreme cases like that as being the norm. The fact of the matter is, most people who sign on don't really want to do it. They really don't. Now, the Tories will say we're helping them by getting them back into work, but you don't help people by punishing them. And I staunchly believe that workfare is designed to punish. It's not designed to help, it's designed to punish. They'll never admit that, but if that is not the case, then why is it that they are pandering to the idea that that the tabloids pump out that unemployed people have it easy? And it makes me absolutely. It's one of those social issues that really, really, really gets me. And I would say, if you're judgmental on this issue, if you've never been through it, all I can say is I just wish you could go through the experience to have some idea. And when I'm talking about people being out of work for a long time, I'm not talking years. Actually, 6 months is the period. That's the cut-off point when they send you onto workfare. So we're not talking about years and years of being unemployed. And listen, I am well aware that there are people who abuse the system. But one of the distortions is, for example, the level of welfare fraud is very, very high. Actually, it's not as high as people think. It's certainly a lot less than bankers' bonuses. And there have actually been issues of administrative errors, no fault of the claimant, administrative errors, maybe because they've got a name wrong or they've overstated a sum of money. And then the gutter press jump on that and say, oh, look at these people exploiting the system. Um, it's easy for the editor of The Sun on the millions that he makes or whatever it is to sit behind his editorial desk and pump out this hate and lies when he never has to go through that humiliation. And anyone who thinks it's so easy to be unemployed in Cameron's Britain really needs to. That's why I could never vote Tory. And the reason I'm focusing on the Tories, although Labour has also been guilty of it, is because um, Labour. It's disgraceful that Labour supported it, but I think the Tories are actually proud of it. And I think there's something particularly callous about Tory thinking in this regard. And I'm very disappointed that no party has made this an issue in this general election. Now, it may well be that it doesn't impact that many people. But as far as I'm concerned, the fact that this is happening in this country in the year 2015 is an abomination. You can't gloss it over any other way. Telling someone that they have to work for no salary is exploitation. Full stop. Um, what can I say? I just think I wish it would end. I wish I would like to see a senior politician say, "We will commit, or we will absolutely abolish this thing because it is plain wrong. It does not help the unemployed into work. It does not lower unemployment figures. Um, and it's a very phony way of trying to bring down unemployment figures. I believe it's a nod to the gutter press. Try and make it look like they're tough on the unemployed. That's what it's about. It's about punishment. It's not about helping people. It's about punishing people. And saying that it helps people in the long term is incredibly patronizing. People aren't stupid. They know when they're being exploited. If it's really about helping people, why not pay them? They're out of work. Why not pay them for doing a job? Makes no sense to me. That is real something for Northern culture.